We're all set. Recording messages. The
Ready?
meeting is recorded.
Okay, it's Mark Ellison calling the meeting to order, WPCA, Wednesday, July 22nd, 7:39 p.m. Unless there are any proposed changes to the agenda, we'll proceed with the agenda that's been circulated. Any proposed changes? Chris, were there any emails sent to you in advance?
No.
No, there were not. I want to thank Joe D'Avanzo for running last month's meeting. I was in Yosemite with my daughter, and it meant a great deal to me that Joe picked up for me. Thank you. First item on tonight's agenda, approval of the June 27th meeting minutes. Any comments, questions?
This is Christian. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the June 24th WPCA meeting as written. Okay, I've got them as the June 27th meeting, but I will also second that. This is Joe.
All in favor?
Joe in favor.
I think I should abstain because I wasn't there, although I've read them and approved them. What do you think, Mark?
I think you abstain and I abstain.
Okay.
The mistype.
Okay, I appreciate everyone's patience this month, and thank you to Chris for moving us a little further along the technology curve. I think as kind of convoluted as this is, it's better than where we were. So thanks for taking the training, and thanks for setting us up tonight, Chris. New business item is the discussion and recommendations relative to class 2 food establishments to require a grease trap, and a discussion on waived fog permits. Is Chris, are you or Brian going to present this?
I can give an overview of it. I don't know if Brian's on or not, but okay. Essentially the state changed the requirements for what is classified as a class 2 restaurant. A lot of the class 2s are now required to have a grease trap, which puts a lot of burden on them. They don't have, most of these class 2s do not have a grease trap. We've been getting a lot of feedback from the restaurants or the food establishments that, at this time they've been shut down. Now they're required to have a grease trap. If you look at the list of the class 2s, there are quite a few on there that I would say definitely need to have a grease trap, like McDonald's, Rowley's. It's case specific, but I think we need to look at the list to see what is essentially, needs one and what doesn't. And then we would have to make our call from there. We use the list that's generated from us to us from the health department. The health department, it's all based on food preparation. The health department gives us this list that we then take and kind of, use as far as a guideline. But with these class 2 restaurants, I think we kind of need to revisit and look at and, use our judgment as far as what needs one and what doesn't, and how much grease they're producing. And, I don't know at this time, do we want to put a big burden on these restaurants? A grease trap essentially costs roughly about $8,000. So,
Chris,
yes.
You just, the list you put out of class 2 restaurants, it
Correct.
started with Bagel King and it moved on.
Yep.
Are those the ones that do not have them or do have?
Those are just the class 2s. We don't have it broken down yet as far as what would need one and what does not.
Got it.
But I mean, if you look at that list, McDonald's is on there. Like I said, Rowley's. There's 7-Eleven. They generate quite a bit of grease from their food, and so forth.
So
Can I ask Joe again? Sorry.
Yep.
Class these are all what we consider all the Class 2 restaurants?
These are all considered, all
What exactly is this list we're looking at?
this list, the Class 2 restaurants are all of those Class 2 restaurants. So we have them broken down.
Okay, so now
Go ahead.
but the state doesn't have any exceptions. The state is now, would say, if we look at state regulations, these are all Class 2 restaurants by state regulation.
Correct. It's all based on how the food is prepared. So that's how the Class 2 restaurants
so
are.
one last question, then I'll shut up.
Yeah.
If the state consider these all Class 2 restaurants, do we have the other exceptions in the state ordinance, or do we have the right to change the definition as a commission?
I believe case specific, it would have to be looked at. So I would have to do a little more research to find out, but I believe we can make the judgmental call based on the classifications of these.
So given
all the Class 2 restaurants.
These are all the Class 2s, correct? Yeah.
So
the list
what
that you're
judgment would you make?
The list that you're looking at is all the Class 2 restaurants.
Okay, thank you.
You have a question?
I do. Two things. I mean, it seems that if we can't make, if this does not supersede the state guideline, if we don't have the authority, does it make sense to wait until we have that answer to make a declaration, one? And two, are we really, and again, maybe the Water Pollution Control has that authority to determine, but if the state is mandating something for a health reason, is this really something that the WPCA wants to get involved in to make a determination on what's appropriate? I mean, I personally, not knowing the downside, I mean, I understand the $8,000 burden, but it would seem to me that if there was something being mandated and regulated for health purposes, we're not necessarily the authority to say otherwise. But I think the bigger piece is if we don't have that authority based on state statute, it seems to me we might want to put off making a determination, but just my thought. And one recommendation, having done many of these WebEx meetings, I don't know if people are comfortable with the chat function, so we're not cutting each other off, and maybe it won't be a problem, but perhaps we could write that we have a question or want to make a statement to Mark, or I don't know if it gets to be a problem in terms of knowing when people want to speak. Just a thought.
I think given that we have 2 members on the phone tonight, I will,
okay.
before we go on to the next point, I will caucus amongst the group. And what's probably easiest is if we just each of us save our questions, and I'll make sure that I get to each one of us. So, Christian, any thoughts or comments on this?
I think my one question is how do we come up with a fair way to assess whether or not each of these restaurants is putting in how much or what amount of the fat, oil, and greases this restaurants are creating in order to make either an exemption or to an allowance for these restaurants not to get a grease trap.
Okay. What we have done historically as a commission is when new restaurants have established residency in town, they've often come in, they've presented their menu to demonstrate that they don't use grease, and we have provided the ability for them to get a waiver. I agree with Nancy that we need to find out if that is a legal action on our part. If it is, I'm all in favor of many of I would say the majority of the new restaurants are not using grease. I think that's testament to the type of restaurants that are opening up, and to foist upon them the need to go and buy a grease trap for $8,000 isn't really, I think, the intention of this commission. So why don't over the course of the next month we find out the answers to those questions, and we'll come back in August with a proposed process.
Okay. Perfect.
Okay. Moving on.
No, we got
item A.
to, let's do B. We got to do item B. Discuss the waived fog permit.
Okay. I was in.
You want to lump,
okay.
You want to lump that all together, or you want to have a discussion on it?
Well, is it an actionable item?
Potentially.
Okay.
Why don't we have a discussion on it and we can discuss it? So we have what we call a waived fog permit. It's a $50 fee for Class 1 restaurants, food establishments that do not require a fog permit or a grease hauler. They do not have grease traps. We are one of the only areas, if not the only town, that still does enforces the waived fog permit for the $50 fee. It doesn't really serve us very much. We're only getting $2,400 basically from it for these restaurants. The thought was, we discussed it internally, but the thought was maybe we not charge for the waived permit moving forward in the future.
Joe?
Okay, well, my thought goes with the same thing with Class 2. If we're waiving permits, whether we charge or not, do we have the legal authority to waive permits? I mean, obviously we've been doing it in the past, but isn't it the same question as the Class 2 restaurants? The Class 1 restaurant, how do they get classified, and who makes that determination? And then we have a separate issue, and we also could talk about whether we charge or not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so for instance, Connecticut Cookie Company came to us a number of years ago and said they don't use grease. They're a Class 2 restaurant. We gave them a waiver. So to me, A and B are intertwined, and we need a proposed process and fee structure.
Yeah.
Nancy?
Mark, can you recognize me again?
We'll go back to Joey.
Joe has.
Yes, sir.
Connecticut Cookie Company is listed as a Class 2 restaurant on the list. That doesn't make what you just said. That is inconsistent with our list.
Well, there's inconsistencies between lists and processes. Mm-hmm. I think that's a true statement.
Right.
Yeah.
Just that I was agreeing. I don't have anything to add.
Christian?
Yeah.
No, I think what is being discussed makes sense, that we need to have both a process and an updated list, because I can't remember the Connecticut Cookie Company, but it's not on the waived list that we have. So
they're on the Class 2 list. They're one of the ones that actually contacted us. Them and the Stand Vegan Cafe, they're working with somebody, but the both of them came for waived permits based on their menu years ago, and now they're required to install this. So we did defer the payment for the fog permit until October 1st. So we do have time before they're delinquent, with their payment. But we can readdress this next month. But I just wanted to bring it up to the commission to discuss. So.
Chris, how did these restaurants get on these lists? It seems to me that for a Class 2, there's no way Frank Pepe's Pizzeria and the McDonald's should be on a Class 2.
Class 3, they should be. It's all generated by the health department. Yeah, the health department generates this list, and they give it to us. So it's based on their classification, what they're classified through the health department. So I did send the list of how they're classified by the State Department of Public Health. We can look at that. It's based on how the food is prepared, essentially.
Yeah, so I don't think a pizzeria or a McDonald's fits in. They are cooking food at the facility, storing food at the facility, and disposing of grease at the facility. So I don't know how they would classify as a class 2 from the state statute.
Right.
And I think the state statute gives you the ability to waive permits based on each municipality, because the state statute gives the municipality that latitude, and they also want the towns and cities to have an ordinance, and I think that's where we're lacking, is we don't have that ordinance in place.
We do need to get one, correct.
So in terms of an action item for that and the next step, is that something we want to loop in our friends on the RTM?
We could, yeah.
So maybe Mark, Mark, I'll talk to you offline. I know we were trading calls last week and then you were away, or a few weeks ago. I can call you and we can talk about a good next step for this. Having served on the RTM, I know who might be, someone we can work with.
Yeah, we had to do the same thing in West Haven. I developed the ordinance, and that's what we had to implement to put any kind of enforcement action and to segregate all of the different restaurants into the different criteria. I don't know if they're just listing themselves as a class they want to be in, which isn't the accurate way to do it.
So if you have actually language that was approved, that's a great way to start. If you can forward that language to me, or at least sort of broadly, and then I could look it up. But if you have existing language from another municipality's ordinance, that would be helpful.
Yeah, no, I can get that. No,
perfect.
And we could probably look at several. I know I did the same thing. The template I used was from the Metropolitan District in Hartford.
Okay.
A very robust one. So
I leave it in your trusted hands, and I will await to hear from you on that, and then can talk to the majority leader about it.
Okay, I will. I'm going to be out tomorrow and Friday, so I will get that onto that first thing next week.
Thank you, Bill Norton. That's outstanding.
Mark, this is Joe. Can I just make a statement? This sounds like it belongs with the health department, not with us. It sounds like they've got to get the classifications right, and then once they do it and we have an ordinance, then we have the ability to either put a fee on it or not to put a fee on it based on the grease passing into the plant. I'm not sure this is our issue.
Well, can I just weigh in on this? So the health department is the one that ultimately classifies these restaurants based on the food preparation. So it's not necessarily their criteria is not based on grease production or how much food is being generated that makes grease. Theirs is more of how the food is being prepared. If you look at that list that they sent, the sheet on the classifications, there's a whole time that they want the food to sit when it's prepared and whatnot. So essentially, the health department doesn't really have any interest in how much grease they're producing, where we do. This is our thing. We want to make sure.
I agree.
So.
And
I agree. I think we care a lot.
This is Christian again. I mean, we're looking at two different situations. The health department is looking at how the food's being prepared, and we're being asked to conform into their classification, when our classification is the one we would need in order to successfully determine whether or not a establishment needs a grease trap doesn't fit into the health department's classification. So I think if we're going to make some decisions, we need to have an established set of criteria that would allow us to make an assessment. Maybe the class of the establishment is part of that criteria, but it's obvious from the class 2 list there are wide-ranging establishments in terms of how food is being prepared within them, and also what type of food is being prepared, but also the process that the food is being prepared. So if there's a grease, if they're using a fryolator to cook their fries, that's different than taking out, a pre-cooked patty and putting it onto, in a microwave. So it doesn't make sense to me to try to use these criteria to determine which of the establishments would need to have a grease trap. It may be more work for us, but in the long run, that's going to be the way that we can successfully determine which of these establishments would need a grease trap and which wouldn't.
I'm gonna jump in and in the interest of time say that I think that when we don't have a clear actionable item, we can spend a lot of time discussing it, and we need an actionable item. So we have work to do in terms of getting sorting out who's ultimately responsible for this, what an ordinance may look like, and what a fee structure and a process may be. So best case scenario, we'll bring that forward in August. Did Brian Carey join by any chance? No, okay.
Sorry, I am on the call. I apologize.
Okay.
I am here.
Yeah, we'll fill you in on the discussion on the grease traps.
Yeah, I've been listening. The WebEx was not working for me for some reason. I apologize, but I am here.
Yeah, you're not alone. I think we have probably an equal number of people on phone versus WebEx. Let's continue on to the classification of old business. Item A is consider and act upon a request by J. Edwards to connect 40 apartments, 45 bedrooms at 15 Umpqua Road to the Fairfield sewer system. This item is being reviewed by the department and will be presented at the August meeting, unless there's any interim updates to that. I will just make a note of the fact that there is a pipe capacity constraint in the middle of town, an 8-inch pipe. And I think a lot of focus and discussion will be on the capacity of that pipe. We certainly don't want a overflow or capacity constraint in that part of town, given the commercial aspect of what takes place there. It's not something we anticipated or planned for, as is often the case with these projects that are not subject to zoning. Item B, consider and act on a request by BlackRock Realty LLC at 160 and 219 Ash Creek Boulevard to extend Wpca approval for an additional 2-year period. This came to the commission last month. The request on the applicant was to source and provide 3 bids on a lining of the pipe that is adjacent to this project. I believe those, I don't believe, I know that those bid responses have come back over the last few days. Brian and Chris, do you want to provide a summary for those in the event not everyone had a chance to review those?
Yeah, we got three bids back from 3 different contractors, ranging anywhere from 80,000, roughly 80,000 to 105,000, I think it was. We had maybe, I'm sorry?
It's about almost 134 was Harold.
Yep, yeah, 134, okay. Yep, I'm just trying to pull it up right now, so. So yeah, we did get the three quotes back. The commission had voted last time to extend or to approve the project based on an agreement to accept $150,000 to line this pipe. It wasn't necessarily to line the pipe; it was to for the construction purposes or the design of that pipe as well. So, you know, we just wanted to make sure we were in the ballpark of where we should be with the cost to line this pipe.
Comments, questions? Nancy? Joe?
Okay, the only question I have is they're asking for an extension. I am okay with everything, and I will be approving this. I will be putting a motion out to approve this. My only question is for an additional 2-year period. Do they need, this came up last month, Mark, do they really need a 2-year period? And my secondary question to staff is, are there any big projects coming up that might change on my mind about extending it for 2 years as versus maybe 1 year? And Mark, last month, the BlackRock Realty made the point that they've gotten through zoning and conservation, I guess, and they still have to get some state permits. So that's their delay right now, just so you know. You weren't at the meeting last month.
Yeah, my orientation is to approve for a 2-year period. I think that it's, you know, this has been with the commission now for 6-8 years. The project's moving forward. There are infrastructure issues. You know, if we after very lengthy discussion last year or 2 years ago, seems like last year or 2 years ago, the compromise was $150,000 as a contribution towards the lining or the replacement of that pipe. We may very well replace that pipe, and that would be an amount significantly higher, and that is what we collect I&I fees for. So it's again my orientation for them to extend for 2 years and allow the applicant to do what needs to be done for the development of that site. Christian?
I can agree with that, yes. No other further questions.
Joe, did you want to put forward the motion?
Mr. Chairman, can I speak to this?
I didn't know whether Nancy
sure.
was saying anything.
Oh.
I didn't hear anything, but I would like to make
Apologies.
a motion if we're ready.
Well, apologies. Attorney Fitzpatrick.
Not a problem, Mr. Chairman. I'm here representing BlackRock Realty. Certainly, we appreciate the 2-year extension if it is approved. We are still involved with OSTA, the Office of the State Traffic Authority, which is a lengthy period. Part of the project is a hotel. Hotels with COVID are a very iffy item. So, we are in firm belief that it will utilize the 2 years, and we need the 2 years. And that's the primary reason we're requesting the 2 years. We're happy the estimates came in under the $150,000, substantially so. And we would urge the commission to approve the 2-year extension.
Joe.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to move to allow BlackRock Realty, LLC at 160 and 219 Ash Creek Boulevard to extend for an additional 2-year period our approval for their buildings with all other conditions that were stated as of July 2018 remaining in effect.
This is Nancy. I'll second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Chairman?
Nancy, aye.
Discussion. Aye. This is Joe. Aye.
Joe, aye. Christian?
There's no discussion. Christian says yes.
Christian, aye. And I am aye. It's unanimous. Thank you for joining us, Attorney Fitzpatrick.
Thank you, folks. I appreciate it.
Good
Take
luck.
care.
Thank you, Bill.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is a discussion on setting a new inflow and infiltration abatement fee. And I want to call your attention to, there was a series of documents that were done, that were circulated back in what seems like just yesterday or a couple of years ago, but 5 years ago, as we began to anticipate that we were going to need to undertake some more extensive projects to remove inflow and infiltration. I think those documents were very well done. I think they were obviously relevant then. I think they're relevant now. And there were there were three scenarios in terms of how we might try to size an appropriate I&I fee for the actual cost of taking I&I out of the system. And I think what we've come to realize over the last couple of years is that doing infrastructure work is both tricky and very expensive. And the scenario that we chose 5 years ago was scenario one, or $16.38 a gallon. And whereas scenario three, for instance, includes the kind of more of the design and infrastructure cost. I suspect that at the time, the I&I fee was just short of $2,000 per single family dwelling unit. And perhaps we thought going to $31.64 was the appropriate step at that point in time. I think with a bit of experience now, and specifically looking at the East Trunk interceptor and the potential cost of that, which may be as high as $6-7 million. We've come to realize that removing I&I is quite expensive. And I would propose that scenario three, back in 2015, plus an inflation factor of 2.5% a year over the next 5 years, is really the number that we should be looking at. And then so that's probably in the range of $4,400 per single family dwelling unit. And then I kind of weigh that against if you were moving into a part of town and you did not have access to the sewer system and you were required to build a septic tank system, you're going to be spending $10,000, $15,000, $20,000. So that's kind of a sanity check there. So that's probably enough out of me, and on this, because the end game is to present or to put forward an IC in a public hearing as soon as August or September. Joe?
Mark, this is Christian. I follow your rationale, and certainly it's a different time, and we have different priorities than we did in 2015. in order to really get a clear understanding, at least for me, of exactly what that looks like, I would need to sort of get a sense of the math on that and see how you see the end result for each of those years moving forward.
Christian, I'm not sure I'm following. Help me out a little bit with that.
So maybe I should rephrase it like this. So you're stating at this point you have in your mind that scenario 3 with $4,150 per residential dwelling unit, and then in addition to that jump at this point, each additional year you're looking at going up, as you said, the 2 to 2.5% for the rate of inflation. Is that so? You're looking at increasing that on a yearly basis as well.
That's kind of my thinking on this Wednesday night in July. But you know, that's the nature of this meeting, is to have a discussion amongst the commission on what is fair and appropriate. Nancy?
Yeah, I mean, I'm listening, and on the infiltration, it feels like something I'm still learning and is a little outside of my pay grade of understanding, but everything that I'm hearing sounds reasonable and it makes sense. So some of this is a bit of a leap for me. So I don't have too much to add to this conversation.
Okay. Joe?
I agree with your analysis, Mark, with setting a base of 4,100. I was a little confused. Are you saying to raise it 2%, 2.5% a year retroactively for the last 5 years, and then set an annual rate? Or are you talking about setting it at 4,100 change and then going forward? Could you clarify that?
Yeah. So my thought is that this report should be refreshed and support a new fee structure. And so if it was 41 and change, 4,100 in 2015, let's refresh the report for what that is more reflective of what current construction costs are today, which is at least what inflation has been over the last 5 years. It's as much an art as it is a science, but what we are learning is that.
Mark. Okay. I agree with your analysis, Mark. And the only other thing I would add is we have never, and there don't seem to be many 3-bedrooms going up anymore, but we always use the same rate for a 2-bedroom as far as consumption. I think we need to add the 3rd bedroom and have a separate rate.
I can weigh in on that. I did add in a 3rd bedroom, just doing a calculation. It's all based on gallons per day. That's how we do our figure.
Right.
So I came up with 290.08 is what a 3-bedroom essentially would cost. So, or that would be, sorry.
I would be consistent with everything. Yes.
That's gallons per day, not cost.
Can I ask a slightly unrelated question because of something you just said I've been actually really wanting to know the answer to this? Has there been an influx, no pun intended, given all the people that have come here, or like the weekend people that are now using their houses? Like, have we seen a massive increase in the way their inflow and usage in that way?
No.
Bill Norton saying no. I'm surprised.
No, that's a very small percentage, again, of people that use the system. That's the usage. The inflow and infiltration is based on the age of the system and flow coming in from cracks and groundwater being pumped in from either sump pumps or roof leaders. So that's the I&I part of it. It's not really the usage. Our flows have, if anything, decreased because of less I&I right now because we haven't had a lot of rain.
Okay.
Dry, yeah.
Thank you for clarifying.
Nancy?
Yes.
Nancy, this is Joe. Your question will be answered when we get to changing the rate, the usage rate, which is coming. I&I rate is based on basically new construction or construction hooking into the system for the first time.
Yeah,
The building.
right, but hasn't there been an increase of like permits being requested and building and, I mean, both those things?
I thought
That's
it
what
was an
people are
excellent
reporting
segue.
anecdotal. Thank you.
No.
Moving
Okay,
right along.
so, yeah, so on item C, the department will update the memo. We'll vote on a revised I&I rate in August and include that with the sewer use rate in a public hearing shortly thereafter.
Question on
That's
that.
what it
Do we want Wright Pierce to take a look at this and update this sheet again?
Yeah, I think it would serve us well. It's a percentage-wise a measurable increase, and I think having a refreshed document is would serve us well.
I agree. Okay.
Okay, so item D, unless there's any further thoughts or questions on that, we'll go to item D, which is a discussion on the sewer use rate for 2020 to 2021. And I'm going to immediately hand this over to Joe D, who's the expert on this sort of analysis.
Well, we started a discussion. Thank you, Mark. We've started a discussion on this last month, and using the current usage, the updated usage, it's basically, according to Chris, about the same as last year. So I at least talked about $4, which is our current rate, $4.45, carrying it forward, using the same logic that the town has used, and not increasing the tax rate. We would not increase the sewer rate. Now that said, I went through the numbers, and we would cover. I double-checked the numbers. We would cover the gross amount of the department expense, which we need to cover, and we would cover the bond servicing, principal and interest, for the two projects that we certainly talked about. The one at Sacred Heart, which is $6 million plus, which has already been bonded. Excuse me. And I use $7 million as the number for the Ash Creek area. So, and I also threw in another $2 million to make it $15 million of bonding. We would cover that completely with the $4.45 we currently charge, leaving us $91,000. I now have the exact number, $91,000, which would be going to the fund. Unlike the years past where we had funded about $500,000 to build our reserves. So that would be at $4.45. The downside to that is over the next few years, if you look out at our capital requirements, we are going to be in the area of about $80 million to have to bond. And if we have to bond that type of money, we would have to have a significant jump from the $4.45. Our rationale over the previous years has been to build the rate slowly so that when we get to that large bonding for the plant, we would have a reasonable amount of money and we wouldn't have to jump the rate to cover any additional bond servicing for that plant upgrade. So right now, $4.45, this year's rate will work. It will generate $91,000 extra, and covering the gross department. The difference between the gross department and the net department cost is $400,000. So it would cover $491,000, assuming the revenues assumption is still accurate when we put the budget together. So that's the background of where
Joe,
we stand.
What's our cash balance and what does it go to under your scenario?
The cash balance that I had was $10 million. You're talking about our reserve?
Our reserve, yeah.
Cash balance? Yeah. So the cash balance would be $10 million, and it would go to approximately $10.5 million, just leaving the $4.45 in place if we didn't use the $1.5 million bonding that I have no idea what we do it for, but I have it thrown into my calculations in the 445. It's just a safety check. So figure it would go to $10.5 million from $10 million.
Yeah, you know, it's just a comment that's less related to the sewer use rate and more to cash management. And that is it seems like when we have a conversation with the town about allocating expenses, they point to the $10 million we have and say, you guys have all the cash, so you should pay it. So it might behoove us at some point in time to actually use some of that cash versus taking on more debt. The flip side of that is bonding rates are sub 2%, so it's hard not to find that attractive. Okay, so thoughts, comments on keeping the sewer use rate flat for the upcoming year? That's a nice headline if anyone was to write a story in the WPCA. Nancy? Christian?
So I think that it would make sense. I didn't get a sense of when our next big jump would have to be from Joe. Maybe I missed that. It was cutting out on my end a little bit. I guess my one worry with keeping it flat is when does that punch in the mouth come? Where we need to increase it in order to pay for some of the bigger projects that we have in the future.
Mark, I can answer that question if you'd like.
Please. Yeah, of course.
Okay, so Christian, right now,
if you have it in front of you, I don't have that information.
Well, what I have is right now, and everything is obviously projection on the waterfall, the town waterfall, which are the capital projects for us. The next largest one is the plant in 2022. Now, it's on the waterfall in 2022. I might defer to either Brian or Bill or Chris to say, what does that mean? It's on the waterfall. It may not come into effect, all $48 million of it at that point. It may be gradual, but the next big hit, in answer to your question, is the plant, and that was on the waterfall for $48 million in 2022. Other than that, we have enough cover between now and then. We have smaller projects, although I'm not sure what they might be. There are pumps and some other things that are in the $1 to $2 million range that we would probably wind up bonding based on the cost of money. But the big one popping is 2022. But I'll defer to the operations guys to see how realistic that is. Thank you, Joe.
Christian, I'm going to send you that waterfall report right now.
Brian, do you want to speak to that or do you want me to? Did we lose?
Brian, are you on?
Sorry, I'm unmuting myself.
Right.
I mean, realistically, we might be looking at design of the upgrade of the treatment plant in 2022. Right. We would not be looking at construction at this point. That would be, I would say, 8 to 10 years out.
Yeah, it would take at least 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, it's far out, and how we go about funding that project is going to be a lengthy discussion.
Yeah, the design is going to take 1.5 years to 2 years to do, and then another 6 months to bid. So we're already halfway through 2020, so that puts us out to 2023. And construction wouldn't be completed for another 4 years.
Right. And the permitting process is, obviously going to take a while now too.
I would say by the time
it's not going to come in one giant sum in 2 years, and the process, based on what I'm hearing, is going to be sort of more of a trickle over the next 5 years, as opposed to a giant need for a need for $48 million in 2020, which would make me more comfortable with keeping the sewer rate at the same this year, given the circumstances, and then starting to increase at a rate that would allow us to mix how we're paying for those future projects. Mr. Chairman?
Yep. Yeah, I was just looking at the waterfall report. But in doing so, Joe, if
that Christian may be interested in using 2% as the bond rate, and who knows where it's going to be going out in the future years, it's $61,000 a year per million. That's what we have to cover. Just to give you some ease. $1,000 a year covers $1 million of bonding at 2% for 20 years. Okay?
Thank you.
Okay. So my last comment on this is over time we've had very I would say porous data from QDS, who provides the water usage information for us. Given that we started this process earlier this year, which credit to Joe D on that, it gives us a month to scrub those numbers and make sure that that's the rate that we want to set, and let's bring that forward in August. If we're certain that those usage numbers are solid. I think what we did last year was we pulled a random 30 or 40 of them and compared them to the year earlier and looked at those that had 0 usage to figure out what was going on with that. And then we can include that on the August agenda and set the public hearing for that. Unless there's any further comments or questions, we'll continue to item E, which is Bill Norton to give a follow-up report on the COVID-19 testing and wastewater.
Thank you. I did speak to Sands the very next day after our last meeting, and then again this past Monday. He has reviewed a few of the different studies. He doesn't feel that it's in the town's best interest to enter any kind of studies on wastewater that would give them any kind of data that he feels necessary that would help the town in any kind of aspect of the COVID-19 pandemic.
Okay. Comments, questions?
No, I'm all set.
Okay,
thank you.
moving on to...
Bill, thank you for following up on that. Joe.
Oh, no problem.
Brian, are you part of conversations with the emergency management team?
Yes.
Okay, so if there were any red flags that pertain to the relevance of this group, you would let us know, I assume.
Yes.
Moving on to the update on current projects. The department would be so kind as to walk us through. We would appreciate it.
Yep, I can give an update. So the Mill River Pump Station or generator, they actually started yesterday excavating out for the pad. The generator has arrived. It's at the yard for the crane installer. So that will be delivered as soon as the pad is done. So that project is moving forward. The wastewater treatment plant generator, it was figured out, I guess, that they need 4 conduits rather than 3. Originally, there was 3 conduits on the original generator. There's a change order that's been issued for $19,000 to account for this extra conduit that needs to be installed. But the generator has been ordered and it's set to be delivered at the end of August. So that's in the works.
So just a quick update on that. We are negotiating that change order with them. It has not been finalized yet. And on top of that, we are in the process of having to clear, because of environmental concerns, the area where the generator is going to make sure that the soil is being handled appropriately and disposed of if it is impacted with PCBs or any other environmental constituents of concern.
You want to hit on C, or you want me to do it, Brian?
Which one? I'm sorry.
Mark?
Item number C.
Mark, can I ask a question? This is Joe.
Sure.
Yeah.
Mark, through you to,
Yes.
to Chris. Chris, when will this change order be coming to us? And I assume it needs to get done pretty quickly so that we don't lose time on the generator?
Correct.
Or this is...
I have not seen it.
next
I have not seen the change order yet. I don't know, Brian, you might be able to verify, but has it been submitted to us yet?
So I have a draft change order. The reason I would bring it back to the commission, $19,000, is because we do not have that in the budget. This was a budget that was based on the FEMA approval. So there was really no contingency, which is unfortunate. We will actually have to look for funding, whether or not Bill could cover that in his existing operating budget, in the fees and professional services contract, a line item, or whether or not we need to get it out of the fund. I will have that lined up for the next meeting.
That's Brian, that's why I was asking the question. I'd like to see this under old business on the next agenda.
No problem.
Thank you.
Good catch, Joe. Nice work. I think we have another potential one coming under old business. Item C, status on the WPCA plant hardening project.
Yep. So the sheeting. Yeah, go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, go ahead, Chris. I'll take care of that.
Yeah, take care of that.
So the project is right now stopped because of environmental concerns on the site that were uncovered during the excavation of material associated with the installation of the sheet pile and the installation of the stormwater facilities. We have PCBs located at the site in some areas where we are in the process of now further delineating this. So right now we have been in contact with EPA and DEP, and they've basically asked us to provide them with all of the data for any areas where we plan on moving material or installing the sheet pile wall in order to make sure that that material is being appropriately handled and removed off-site for disposal. So as you can imagine, that is a unfortunate turn of events for us. It was not something that we anticipated having on a wide scale at the site. The time bond, when they did the design for the project back in 2016 and 17, they did do selective sampling for environmental constituents, but they really did not uncover anything of this level during their geotechnical environmental testing. We knew that there were going to be some pockets of landfill material, but nothing of this magnitude that needed to be addressed and handled appropriately. I'm still trying to determine what the ramifications are cost-wise for the project. I don't want to, at this point, say that there's going to be overages. We had a substantial contingency on the project that we are able to dip into to keep the project moving. But right now, I won't know the scope of the impact of the material until next week. I'll get a better idea. We are not going to move forward in any manner that is going to put the town in a position where we will have any type of issue with either the DEP and EPA. We just can't do that. We are, all parties involved, Time Bond and Holzner, the contractor, are working to try to come up with a solution to the issue that satisfies the regulators. I've been keeping the administration abreast on all of these issues, but right now, I just need to get more data and I can bring it back to you. Anything that's been a change order on the project has been approved through normal change order processes and is being handled within the existing contingency. I can have a complete breakdown of the numbers for you early next week. I can forward to you and we can make this an item on the agenda going forward.
Christian.
No questions at this point.
Nancy.
I'm just, I mean, Brian, you alluded to, making sure that the administration is aware. Obviously, this is any time in town now that we hear about PCBs, it's a cause of eyebrow raising.
Yeah. I understand, of course. The source of the material is just old landfill.
Of course.
The marsh was filled and, it's inconsistent. I don't,
Listen, we know, I know. We go digging and you find, and we live in Connecticut where they're natural existing, and I totally understand that. And I don't mean to suggest anything nefarious here. It's just, there's a sensitivity. So I think.
Oh, absolutely.
We just.
Absolutely. I fully understand. This is the last thing I ever wanted to be dealing with again.
Yeah.
But
and just making sure that
I hate.
Go ahead.
No, I have been keeping them up to speed on all of the issues down there, and they're fully aware of the steps we are taking.
And I just want to make sure that whatever the public perception, it's not even just letting of course it's letting the administration know, but to make sure that the narrative isn't being spawned that we're like trying to hide anything or
no.
Your department or WPCA, like that we're not involved in anything, that this is just information. So it's important to talk about it here. So good. Okay. That is the only comment I have, Mark. Thank you.
Joseph.
Okay, Brian, the only question I have is what is the stoppage here going to do to the microgrid status? And I believe we have a grant that's going to expire in December, maybe?
So we're trying to work on getting so that shouldn't really hold us up. They've had most of the infrastructures in the ground already. So that's just coming back and installing the above ground utility work. Ed Bowman has really been handling that. We are working on extension of the grant. Hopefully, because COVID, they've seemed pretty willing to give extensions. So I don't think that this should not impact that project.
Excellent. Thank you.
And so I like to follow up bad news with good news. We have been submitting all of our paperwork for the grant reimbursement, and that is coming back. As soon as they get it, it's coming back. So we are keeping track to make sure that the funds are being submitted for all our grants to make sure we are recouping those costs.
Thank you.
Okay. Some more good news. We have the Eastern Turnpike Pump Station project going forward. What's new on that?
We had the pre-construction meeting last week with the contractor. With the state was there. They actually, when they issued the state permit, they required electronic signage, which was not included in our plan. They want 2 billboards. I did contact the state and spoke with them. They are willing to readdress this after a month. They want to look at the operation and see how much the traffic is being impacted, especially with the start of school or potentially the start of school. They want to make sure that the traffic is flowing correctly and whatnot. So that was one hitch that we had to deal with. They also have some testing requirements that they've increased. They want a testing lab there doing density tests on the trench, every 25 feet, which is going to be a little bit more, cost to us. As of this point, we don't know how much, but Wright Pierce has been involved, and a testing lab has been secured to do this work. So they're actually doing test pits as we speak, and they're hoping to start putting pipe in the ground by Monday. So potentially good news. I mean, we're moving forward on this project. So.
I will put this out there for any of the commissioners that if anyone wants to, we'd only be able to get 1 or 2 for the project meetings on a call, so it wouldn't be a notice meeting. But if anyone wants to sit in on a project meeting for either the hardening project or the Eastern Turnpike project, you're more than welcome. If you send me an email, I can loop you in on that.
Yep.
Chris, and also the pump station site itself, they've started to clear cut.
Correct. They started, yep.
They're going to start excavation next week, aren't they?
I think Dennis said maybe 2 weeks, but they're going to start mobilizing and getting equipment there and so forth. So, yeah. Yeah. Any other questions on D?
Okay.
No.
Go to E.
The East Trunk Sewer Interceptor project, that's being reviewed by Wright Pierce. They actually started their work on July 6th. They have 45 days, so we should have an answer by the middle of August. Or they're going to put up some kind of a report based on their findings. So we should have something by August, maybe the beginning of September, to present to the commission.
Okay.
Item F, Brian, I don't know if you want to weigh in on this. The siphon?
Which one's that?
The siphon
the
project?
siphon. So that's, so that is designed and being weighted. It's getting ready for bid. We'll probably try to coincide that bidding project with the East Trunk sewer line.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense.
Any questions on F?
Oh, G?
G, the outfall. GHD has been secured. We are planning on starting that project the week of August 17th. We have to work at low tide, so that's the next low tide cycle during that week. So that work is, we have 3 different contractors that we have to coordinate to get working at the same time. So that work is right now it's planned for the week of August 17th to be done.
And that is
Okay.
just to recertify the engineering plans before we go out to bid to actually fix the work. Fix the
Correct. We
pipe.
would have to go to bid after GHD re-signs the plans.
Okay.
H, other than the agreement tonight with the Metro Center, there's no update on that.
Can we just make note that we're going to bring forward an RFP to replace that pipe so that we can scope the potential? That pipe probably should have been replaced when the Metro Center went in, and we can line it now, or 5 years from now, someone's going to say, why didn't they replace it before all this development took place in this part of town? So I think it behooves us to at least consider what the cost to replace that pipe is.
Agreed.
Correct. Agreed. Item.
Mark, let me make a suggestion.
Sure.
We take item H and put it on August agenda. If the staff will be ready to talk about either relining or replacing.
Yeah, I think the action item to bring back in August is a proposal to RFP the replacement.
Right.
A process for the RFP.
Rita, add it to the August agenda.
Yep.
Good catch, Joe.
We also are looking into a steep grant potentially for this project. So we have to get some paperwork in place and whatnot, but this potentially we could get a steep grant for it.
Okay.
Now, Mark, may I ask a question?
Of course.
Chris, if we get a grant, is it impacted by the $150,000 we're getting from the developer?
That I
If we
do
apply for a grant?
that I do not know.
Before we do any paperwork, if we've got the developer paying for a piece of it, I'm not sure you're going to be entitled, but I just want you to find out before you go down that and do a lot of work.
Right. It's something we would have to look into, correct?
Right.
Good point, Joe. Wastewater treatment plant?
There is no update on that. Bill, you don't have any update, do you?
No, I mean, we're way out on that one. That was the one we talked about with the design and stuff like that.
Okay.
Item J, same, no update. That still has to be designed. And item K, I believe we touched on the microgrid. That's in the works. So that's the town has signed an agreement.
E and J are the same, right? Am I missing something?
No, J is the upper east trunk line.
That's Rooster River.
That's Rooster River.
Mark, that's your project.
No, that's behind the Board of Ed. Item J is.
Isn't that all considered Rooster River?
It is. But item E is the lower portion by Ash Creek.
Yeah.
Metro
Okay.
Center.
Yeah, 2 different ones. Yeah.
Yeah, 2 different projects.
Okay, gotcha. And K?
Mark.
Joe?
Mark. Can I also
Yes, sir.
request that we add 2 additional projects, either to the list or to our agenda. One is a discussion of the 8-inch pipe in town by the movie theater, and the other is the 8-inch pipe under Stratfield Road that's going to get involved when we get Sacred Heart moving along. Can't forget those two projects.
Sure.
Thank you.
We're a busy commission. Remember when there were just 2 or 3 projects?
Very busy.
Yeah.
The Stratfield Road project, the thought was Sacred Heart was going to resubmit their new plan to us. They haven't come to the commission yet. So, you know, I don't know if we want to table that part till they come to the commission.
Chris.
Yeah.
Yeah. Chris, excuse me. I just want to put it on the list so we don't lose it.
Okay.
We don't have to discuss it until you're ready to discuss it.
Okay.
Either one of those, the 8-inch pipe or but I just want to put them both on the list so that they're there.
So they don't go.
I'm
that's
sorry.
Fine. Nope, that's fine. I totally
didn't
agree.
want you to. Yeah, I didn't mean to.
I didn't know if you wanted a discussion on it or not, but that's fine.
No, I think we've got the discussion. I think we just need to not forget about them, and when their time comes, start addressing them.
I agree.
Okay, and then K, the microgrid.
Yeah. I think we touched on that already. We're just waiting for an agreement between UI and the town. So,
Okay.
Brian.
And then last item on the agenda for tonight is status update on sewer bypasses. Were there any?
No, there were none.
There were none. All right. Mr. Norton, we wish you a good few days of vacation. I have a motion to close.
Well, just and a reminder that I look forward to receiving that language from you after your vacation.
Well, it's a couple days. Yes, I will take care of that.
And enjoy it. Enjoy.
Okay, thanks for everyone. Yes. Motion to adjourn from Joe DiVanzo. Second.
I'll second it. It's Nancy, if no one else has.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. You guys, thanks for staying with us. Thanks for the hybrid approach.
And thank you for putting this on WebEx. I hope other boards and commissions will follow. I think it's good to be able to engage this way. If we can't do it in person, it's a good, at least next step. So I hope other boards and commissions will follow suit. So thank you.
Yeah, we'll have the kinks worked out for next month too. So.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.